Hey babe, look what I found.
What is that?
This is a pressure tank for a below ground or in the basement well system. And I just went to a pump company and I just asked them. I said, do you have any out in your boneyard? And they had tons, and they just let me pick the one I wanted.
Why do we need a pump?
Oh, I'm sourcing stuff for Julie's rocket mass heater that we're going to put in her cabin.
Oh.
This is eventually, I'm going to have a place for a pipe to go in here, and it's going to go up through it and then out the window where the Yukon stove goes out right now. And this is going to hold mass. It's going to be filled with sand around the pipe, and it's going to get warm, and it'll stay warm for hours and hours. It's huge. But I just wanted to use this in lieu of like a 50-gallon drum barrel, because the 50-gallon drum barrels have those ribs around them, and they just look kind of rednecky. And when I paint this and get rid of the air nozzle and it's all round and everything, it'll be painted black. It'll look beautiful. It's going to be gorgeous. And so I'll have a plug in the bottom that I can pull, and all the sand will drain out, and you can move it. See, I can pick this thing up, you know. It's just about like a barrel, but I think if you went and tried to source a 50-gallon drum barrel, you'd probably have to pay 20 bucks for it. I'm building a rocket mass heater for a friend, and it's for her tiny house, her little cabin, and I think it's going to be a really cool project. Some of the materials that you're going to need for it, according to this book and different plans that I've seen, is like a 55-gallon drum barrel, and I just looked at some of them, and I mean, they're great, and I love the concept, and I want to do it, but I just want to make it look a little classier. Also, I'm sourcing and just kind of searching around like Army surplus, and I actually ended up finding 2 semi-loads of fire bricks that a Army surplus buddy of mine had. I didn't even know he had them, and it's just, sometimes you just have to talk to people and be a little bit of a people person and get in there. What I've found is that if you go to some of these pump places, they've got tons of these sheet metal pressure tanks and whatnot in the back behind a building somewhere, and they're just waiting for enough of them to get there to fill up a dumpster, and then they're going to take and throw them away, and they're more than happy to give them to you. It's incredible. Even if you wanted a 55-gallon drum, you'd probably have to pay 20 bucks for it. So I just wanted to let people know, because we're going to do a video about this build, that you can, if you're a little bit ingenuitive and creative, source some materials for relatively cheap. I decided to make the heat riser tube. I wanted it to be a thick steel, but out of the smallest tube that I could, and I've seen some different scale tables depending on whether it was a 4-inch, 5-inch, 3-inch, 6-inch tube, you know, how long it had to be and all the dimensions and stuff. And I decided, because of the size of her cabin and it's a pretty tiny house, that a 3-inch tube would be plenty. And I was able to source one of those for just a few bucks. But I mean, like, I got this 42-inch piece of 3/8 wall, or it's just maybe a 1/16 shy of 3/8 wall. It's a heavy-duty steel pipe, you know, with a 3-inch ID. I was just thinking, because I was reading a book on rocket mass heaters, and one of the big problems they have is the tube melting, right, you know, where all the oxygen and fuel meet, because that insulated tube creates a instant rise, and it creates a vacuum down there, and you've got air rushing through the port into that tube, and I think it's probably melting right there where the air is rushing into. It's just kind of like an oxygen acetylene torch. You have directional heat on a certain spot, and eventually it is going to melt. And so I came up with this idea that I'm going to use at the throat of it, going up into the heat riser a concrete tube that's perfectly smooth and round and goes up. But I had to find something to form it like that. I was going to make a smooth piece of wood and form concrete around it and then burn it out or carve it out of wax or something like that, and basically make a neat little port at the throat of the heat riser right as it leaves the burn chamber. And what I came up with, and I just searching at Army Surplus, I found this. And I'm like, that's perfect. It's aluminum. Look how light that is. So guess what? As soon as I start a fire in it, it's going to melt out. But I'm going to form concrete around this and then put the tube on it. And when that fire goes in and the air rushes in, it's going to go up a really heat resistant concrete mixture, and it's going to be going the right direction. And I think it's going to really help with this melting issue that they're having on the stoves. And so, but I come up with these ideas in my sleep, and then I have to go find stuff to make it work. And if you get creative, like I got these for $3, I could make 2 forms out of that. You know, form the concrete around it and build all around it, and as soon as you start a fire in it and it starts going, that's going to melt out because it's just aluminum. Has a real low melting point. So my wife's probably, I'm notorious for just rambling on, so my wife's probably going to cut most of this out. But I just wanted you guys to know that when you come up with these ideas and you're looking to get stuff and whatnot, if you go down to your hardware stores and these industrial places and you ask them where you can source something like that, you're going to pay an arm and a leg for it. But if you get a little bit creative, you can really source some things. I think so far I've got $8 into this, and the $5 for that tube I didn't even have to pay. I just insisted. Because he's a friend of mine at this pump company. So anyways, I appreciate you watching, and we're going to go ahead and continue on with this project, and it's going to be a cool project. You wait and see.